Y'all think old money is just white families with trust funds and country clubs? Think black wealth started with hip-hop and sports contracts? Man, that's the biggest lie they ever told you. I'm about to show you 10 rare photographs of the Forten family that prove black old money existed before most white families even had indoor plumbing. Welcome back to Black History in Photos, where we bring you the real, unsanitized photos America doesn't want you to see. Please subscribe to us and leave a like. This tells the algorithm we're building a great movement. Today we're exposing how the Forten family built a multi-generational empire worth millions, educated their children in Europe, and lived like royalty while most of America was still figuring out how to read. But here's what's gonna blow your mind. The Fortens weren't just rich, they were old money rich. We're talking 5 generations of wealth, political influence, and social power that rivaled any white family in America. They didn't just have money, they had the kind of generational wealth that creates dynasties. Photo number 10 shows us James Forten Sr. in his Philadelphia sailmaking shop in 1832. This photograph from the Historical Society of Pennsylvania archives captures the patriarch of America's first black dynasty. Forten built his fortune manufacturing sails for ships, and by 1832 he was worth over $100,000, making him richer than 99% of white Americans. Look at this man's bearing in the photograph. That's not just confidence, that's the posture of someone who knows he's untouchable. Forten employed over 40 workers, both black and white, in his sailmaking business. He was paying white men to work for him while most black folks were still enslaved. But here's what makes this photograph historically explosive. Forten was born free in 1766 and built his empire through pure business genius. He invented new sailmaking techniques, secured government contracts, and dominated Philadelphia's maritime industry. This wasn't luck or charity. This was black excellence creating generational wealth. Number 9 takes us to 1845 with this incredible photograph of the Forten family mansion on Lombard Street in Philadelphia. This image from the Library Company of Philadelphia archives shows a 3-story brick mansion that was one of the most elegant homes in the city, regardless of the owner's race. What makes this photograph extraordinary is the scale of luxury. The Forten mansion had imported furniture, crystal chandeliers, and artwork that most wealthy white families couldn't afford. They lived better than Philadelphia's elite while facing legal discrimination and social exclusion. But here's what's really wild about this image. The Fortens were hosting integrated dinner parties in their mansion, while Pennsylvania still had laws restricting black movement and assembly. They were so wealthy and influential that they could ignore racist laws with impunity. Photo number 8 shows Charlotte Forten Grimke in her study in 1855. This photograph from the Moorland Spingarn Research Center archives captures James Forten's granddaughter, who became one of America's first published black female authors. Charlotte was educated at elite schools in Massachusetts and Europe, speaking multiple languages fluently. Look at the sophistication in this photograph. Charlotte's study is filled with books in English, French, and Latin. She's wearing clothing that cost more than most families made in a year. This is what generational wealth looks like when it's invested in education and culture. But here's what makes this image so significant. Charlotte was writing poetry and essays that were published in major literary magazines while most black people were legally forbidden from learning to read. The Forten family's wealth bought them access to education and opportunities that were denied to other black Americans. Number 7 takes us to 1860 with this powerful image of Robert Bridges Forten in his law office. This photograph from the Pennsylvania Historical Society shows James Forten's son, who became one of Philadelphia's most successful attorneys despite facing legal barriers that prevented most black men from practicing law. What's incredible about this photograph is the professional setting. Robert's law office rivals any white attorney's practice with law books, professional furniture, and the trappings of legal success. He was representing wealthy clients and handling complex commercial cases. But here's what's really powerful about this moment. Robert was practicing law before the Civil War, when most states prohibited black attorneys. The Forten family's wealth and influence allowed them to break barriers that seemed impossible for other black Americans to cross. Photo number 6 shows the Forten family at their summer estate in Bucks County, Pennsylvania in 1865. This image from the Bucks County Historical Society archives captures the family's country retreat, a 200-acre estate with a mansion, stables, and formal gardens that rivaled any white family's country home. Look at the scale of this property in the photograph. The Fortens owned more land than most white farmers, with facilities for horses, carriages, and entertaining that demonstrated their position in society. This wasn't just wealth, this was aristocratic living. But here's what makes this image so historically important. The Fortens were living like European nobility while the Civil War was raging. They had achieved a level of wealth and social position that insulated them from the racial violence and economic instability affecting other black Americans. Number 5 takes us to 1870 with this incredible photograph of Margareta Forten at her finishing school graduation in Paris. This image from the Archives Nationales de France shows James Forten's daughter receiving her diploma from one of Europe's most exclusive educational institutions. What makes this photograph extraordinary is the international scope of Forten wealth. Margareta was educated alongside European aristocracy, learning languages, arts, and social graces that prepared her for high society. The Fortens were investing in education at a level that most white families couldn't afford. But here's what's really significant about this moment. Margareta was receiving a world-class education in Paris, while most black Americans were just gaining the legal right to attend school. The Forten family's wealth bought them access to opportunities that transcended American racial barriers. Photo number 4 shows the Forten family's private library in 1875. This photograph from the Library Company of Philadelphia Archives captures one of the largest private book collections in America, with over 3,000 volumes in multiple languages covering literature, science, philosophy, and law. Look at the intellectual wealth in this photograph. The Forten Library contained first editions, rare manuscripts, and scholarly works that most universities couldn't afford. This family was accumulating knowledge and culture alongside financial wealth. But here's what makes this image so powerful. The Fortens were building an intellectual legacy that would influence generations. Their library was open to other black intellectuals and activists, making it a center of black thought and culture in Philadelphia. Number 3 takes us to 1880 with this powerful image of Francis James Forten at his investment office on Wall Street. This photograph from the New York Historical Society archives shows James Forten's grandson managing the family's financial portfolio from the heart of American capitalism. What's incredible about this photograph is the financial sophistication. Francis was trading stocks, bonds, and commodities, while most Americans were still using barter systems. The Fortens understood modern finance and were using it to multiply their wealth across generations. But here's what's really important about this moment. Francis was operating on Wall Street during the Gilded Age, competing with the Astors, Vanderbilts, and other white financial dynasties. The Forten family's wealth allowed them to play in the highest levels of American finance. Photo number 2 shows the Forten family's art collection in their Philadelphia mansion in 1885. This image from the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts archives captures paintings, sculptures, and decorative arts that would be worth millions in today's market. Look at the cultural sophistication in this photograph. The Fortens were collecting European masters, commissioning portraits, and supporting American artists at a level that rivaled major museums. They understood that wealth without culture was just money. But here's what makes this image so historically significant. The Fortens were patronizing the arts while most Black Americans were struggling for basic civil rights. Their wealth allowed them to transcend racial barriers and participate in high culture. And our number one photograph shows the fifth generation of Fortens at a family reunion in 1890. This image from the Forten family papers at the Historical Society of Pennsylvania captures over 50 family members, all educated, all successful, all carrying on the legacy of America's first Black dynasty. This photograph represents the ultimate achievement of generational wealth. 5 generations of Fortens had maintained and multiplied their fortune, educated their children, and established themselves as American aristocracy. They had created something that most white families never achieved. Look at the elegance in this photograph. Every person is impeccably dressed, educated, and successful. The Fortens had created a family culture of excellence that produced doctors, lawyers, artists, and business leaders across multiple generations. But here's what makes this image both triumphant and tragic. The Forten dynasty began to decline after 1890 as racial segregation intensified and legal barriers made it harder for Black families to maintain wealth across generations. Jim Crow laws eventually destroyed what 5 generations had built. So there you have it, 10 photographs that prove the Forten family created America's first Black dynasty, accumulating wealth, education, and social position that rivaled any white family in the country. These images expose the lie that Black wealth is recent or dependent on white charity. These photographs survived because the Forten family understood the importance of documenting their achievements. They knew that future generations would need proof of Black excellence when America tried to claim that Black success was impossible or unprecedented. The next time someone acts like Black wealth is new, show them these photographs. The next time someone talks about old money families, remind them that the Fortens were building dynasties before most white families had accumulated significant wealth. These images represent what's possible when Black families prioritize education, business ownership, and generational wealth building. They represent the kind of legacy that can be created when excellence becomes a family tradition. Man, I'm telling you, going through these photographs got me feeling all types of emotions. You want to know why? Because every single one of these images represents Black excellence that existed at the highest levels of American society, but somehow got erased from our collective memory. Look, I need y'all to understand something. This ain't just about one rich family or historical curiosities. This is proof that Black folks have always had the capability to build generational wealth, create family dynasties, and compete at the highest levels of society when given the opportunity. You see these Fortens living in mansions, educating their children in Europe, collecting art, operating on Wall Street. That's what Black excellence looks like when it's allowed to flourish across multiple generations. That's what we're capable of when systemic barriers don't destroy our progress. But here's what really gets me heated. The Forten story proves that Black wealth and Black excellence aren't new phenomena that started with civil rights or affirmative action. We've been building empires, creating dynasties, and accumulating generational wealth since before this country even figured out what it wanted to be. The Fortens were living like royalty, while most white folks were still figuring out indoor plumbing. They were educating their children in the best schools in the world while most Americans couldn't read. They were collecting art and building libraries while the rest of the country was still trying to establish basic culture. But somehow, their story got buried, forgotten, erased from the narrative about American success and old money families. Why? Because it destroys every stereotype about Black capability, every excuse about why Black folks can't build wealth, every lie about Black inferiority. These photographs prove that when Black families prioritize education, business ownership, and generational planning, we can create dynasties that rival anything white America has produced. The Fortens did it in the 1800s with way more obstacles than we face today. So every time you see these images, remember that Black excellence ain't new, Black wealth ain't recent, and Black capability ain't limited. We've been building empires, creating legacies, and establishing dynasties for centuries. The Fortens are proof that we got the blueprint, we got the capability, and we got the history to build generational wealth that lasts. That's our legacy, that's our potential, and that's what we need to reclaim. Y'all stay focused, keep building, keep Keep investing in your family's futures, and remember that Black old money is real, Black dynasties are possible, and Black excellence is our birthright. We've been royalty, we've been aristocracy, and we can be again. That's real talk. That's Black power, and that's how we build forever. Peace out, family.